Hi, you are in the ladies' room with Dr. Donica, the only public ladies' room you can enter anytime without ever waiting online. I'm your host, Dr. Donica Moore. We'll be having real conversations with real women about really intimate issues. They may be embarrassing, sad, or funny, but they will always be interesting and informative. You know, like the best conversations you've had in ladies' rooms with your best friends, or total strangers and a physician. Please join us. Hello, and welcome to another exciting episode of In the Ladies' Room with Dr. Donica. Now, I want to know if you ever met someone at a meeting and immediately decided that you wanted to get to know this person better, that you wanted them to be on your team or you wanted to be on their team. That's how I felt when I met our next guest, Lisa Charles, several years ago when we were both speakers at Olympian Joetta Clark Diggs' annual Women's Health Conference. It is no surprise that this inspirational speaker is known as Coach Lisa. She's the CEO of Embrace Your Fitness, a health and wellness consultancy. She has walked the talk, having to overcome her own health and weight management challenges. She's a life coach who actually has quite extensive life experience. She's an incredible background from being an opera singer, an actor, a prosecutor for I think a decade, certainly a mother of three, and then changing lanes to focus on health and fitness. She's the research coordinator for Rutgers University Aging and Brain Health Alliance, and today she's adding 2 new accolades to her resume. She is a new author of the motivational book, Yes, Commit, Do, Live, and she's my personal official new health and fitness trainer. Please join me in welcoming Lisa Charles, Coach Lisa, to the ladies' room. Hi, thank you for joining us.
Oh my gosh, I love the introduction. I felt like a couple snaps up to the right. Thank you so much. The sentiment is felt right back at you. We did make such a connection years ago.
Thank you. I remember sitting in your talk saying, oh my God, this woman is incredible. You know, no wonder Joetta picked you. And of course, Joetta Clark Diggs, from the first family of track and field, an Olympian, a 4-time Olympian, has been a previous guest on this podcast. And there was one other woman from that conference who has been a guest on this podcast. So tell me, of course, we're taping this in, the midst of this incredible pandemic that just does not seem to be going away.
Right.
I ask all of our guests how they're managing and how their families are doing in the pandemic. And I just want to start with the elephant in the room. You have not had a good pandemic.
Not at all.
So please share with people what has happened.
I don't stand alone. So I'm going to say that first and foremost, because I've met so many people that have gone through a lot of loss in different ways. But I would say that I am one of 5 siblings. I have 2 older sisters, and I have 2 younger, used to say slightly younger, but twin brothers, and was extremely close to my brothers. We talked through this whole pandemic, just all the different layers of what was going on and life transitions. And most sadly, I lost both of my brothers to COVID-19 this past couple of months. We talked about the need for a vaccine. They were both in line to get vaccinated. They just had not had their turn yet. And it just took them both very quickly. And for me, I say it's been a very strong passion of mine before they were sick, but it became even more so after. It's just educating people about the vaccine and recognizing that, for some people, the reasons why never seem to mount up to if you see someone that goes through it. My brothers did not necessarily fit. They certainly weren't very old, and they didn't have a lot of other issues attached that you often hear about.
How old were they?
So both of them were 55.
Okay.
My one
Which is
brother,
looking younger and younger to me every day.
Right. So they were the youngest of the family. One had run just a half marathon, maybe 6 months before the pandemic. That was his second, very physically fit. So I'm just going to say, you don't know how it strikes your body until it strikes your body. Maybe it is just a cold, but maybe it's not. And when it's not, it is so difficult for the medical field to catch up when it's in your system and it's moving rapidly. It's just they're always behind the 8 ball. And to see it with one brother and then to slowly see it with the other, they were about 3 weeks apart in terms of their death. But with that, I will say it's I don't know if words can really express the passion I have behind health and fitness, and really getting the message out to people about the things that they can do independently, besides being vaccinated, taking care of themselves from the brain to the body. You have to take the steps to do it. There's just no question about the need for it. And if you didn't see it before, I'm pretty sure you see it now. And now it just becomes a question of how to do it. Like, how do I do it? How do I start if I haven't started before?
Mm-hmm. And of course, my heart goes out to you and your family. This is obviously a tragedy, and not just a double tragedy. The fact that they were twins just makes this so much worse. I don't think there's anything that can make it better, other than trying to use the tragedy to affect positive change in others. And it's got to be so frustrating for you because you had already drunk that Kool-Aid. Yes. You were already doing everything in your power to get other people to live their best lives and live their healthiest lives. So is everybody else in your family vaccinated now?
Yeah, so everyone is vaccinated. I'm very, very happy. My eldest sister just finally said, yes, I will vaccinate. And I was extremely ecstatic for that. I will say this, and because people might think, oh, I can do this family reunion, I can go here, or I'll just be careful. But, when my brothers came down with, it was the UK variant that they both had. It came into the small town they lived in Maryland. Oh my goodness. But they had a little family gathering. So everyone that was vaccinated did not get sick. Everyone that wasn't vaccinated got sick. So I just say, that for some people, oh, that's anecdotal. I say, I think it's illustrative of the power that the vaccine can have, even against something that they said was quite powerful before the Delta variant. They were talking about the UK variant. So I saw it.
It's not anecdotal. It is in terms of you telling about your two brothers, but in terms of the data, we know that 97% of people who are hospitalized are not vaccinated, and 99 point whatever percent of people who are dying from COVID now have not been vaccinated. So this is, just so frustrating from a medical standpoint to try to get Americans to understand how blessed we are that we have easy access to the vaccine. I just heard from a friend of mine in Tokyo who was finally just able to get vaccinated. And she said, in Japan, people don't understand why Americans are not rushing to get vaccinated. They're struggling to get vaccinated. And then of course, people in many other countries have no access.
Or we have choices of vaccines and they're free. And you can walk in now in most places. And they're knocking on doors in some places. And I think, whether it's touched your life specifically or not, you can really learn, because it's not something you would ever want to go through. And it's also, even from the standpoint of one individual I was talking to, even if you say for yourself that, well, I'm making a choice for myself, but actually you're really making a choice for a lot of other people, because you don't want to be the one to infect somebody else.
Absolutely. And I will say, obviously as a physician, I am a preacher when it comes to vaccines of all kinds. And I couldn't wait to get my vaccine. And as a physician, I am extremely privileged that I was able to go in the first round. And if I could have given my spot to my mother or my children, I didn't have that power or that ability, and I felt guilty being able to be in the first round. And at the same time, I felt like I was protecting my family, because as bad as it would be if I got COVID, I don't think I could ever forgive myself if I passed it on to somebody who I love and care about, or even a total stranger.
Exactly. And you would never know it. And I just think, it's a part of our responsibilities, just as we love and know, part of being a humankind. I mean, I don't know, I've heard a lot of the arguments that people start to make against, and a lot of them, I think they just really have to think through it a little bit more thoroughly and recognize it is not just this personal decision you're making. You're making a decision that affects a lot of people,
Yeah, and millions of people you don't even know.
right.
So I'm still happy to talk to anybody one-on-one who wants to talk about their concerns about the vaccine, or the myriad of myths and
Yes.
misinformation that
Yes.
has been promulgated about the vaccine. But now I'm ready for the Nike approach. Just do it.
Just
Just
at this point.
do it. And then we could talk about, everything else. So again, my heart goes out to you and your
Thank you.
family. Thank you for sharing your story and your pain and your perspective. And now I want to shift gears slightly and talk about your work in general with helping people to live healthier lives. And tell us how that came about for you, because that wasn't the beginning of your journey.
No, it's an interesting thing. I was doing an interview a couple of weeks back, and someone that was saying, wow, when I look at your past, it doesn't look like it. How does this all add up to where you are right now? And for me, everything makes 1,000%. So I began my professional career as a prosecutor. I was a state prosecutor in Brooklyn. I used to do.
That's where I'm from.
I love Brooklyn. I still love Brooklyn now.
I don't.
You didn't like it? Oh my gosh, I loved it so much. I just loved the rest. I loved everything about it. I really did. I did a lot of my rape cases, child abuse cases, did a little bit of police corruption. And then I came and did federal cases here in New Jersey, which was mostly organized crime, police corruption, and some rape cases on federal territories. But the theme about all of that, and especially in Brooklyn, was I viewed myself as someone that was coming in at the darkest moment of someone's life, one of their darker moments, and giving them a pathway to reclaim their power and to really reset the stage that this is now a moment of triumph for them, because they were able to maybe make it through testifying at a trial and all of that. And I saw myself in that way. And, in both of those offices, I ended up doing a lot of community work on behalf of the office, just really educating people on the justice system, and encouraging people to take ownership of their communities and such. So for me, that was always a piece of it. I was practicing in Newark. I had a little side thing I did, which I had I used to sing. So I was singing on the side, and I would invite a lot of my FBI friends into the city. There's a wonderful street, Jazz Row, and there's all sorts of jazz clubs. Had a one-woman show. And I used to talk with some of them, and they, would say, wow, I just really wish I had more time for this. And an agent who has been a long-term friend of mine now just asked me one day, he said, so when are you going to do what you do part-time, full-time?
Now, this was an FBI agent or a musical agent?
FBI agent.
Okay.
It would have been nice if it was a musical.
Yeah.
I like to go back and rewrite that part of the story. That would have been awesome. It was an FBI agent. It was a friend of mine. And sometimes people can say a word and just start my head spinning. And I start thinking like, well, why can't I do what I really want to do, which was to act and sing? I loved it from college. I performed since I was a young child. I used to do dramatic poetry reading and traveled. And so I ended up.
Prosecutors kind of like performing.
It was absolutely performing. Like every time was opening and closing was for me was a huge performance. I used my stage. I was Perry Mason. I loved Perry Mason. That's one of the reasons I went to law school. And I would spend so much time, which is probably about, I want to say 3 or 4% of your job. It was opening and closing statements, but I would spend a whole lot of time making them just appeal. Like I wanted people to really be absorbed by the story, not just the facts, but the story and the characters, which happen to be real people and real witnesses. So it really fit really nicely into getting into acting. And, I had an agent. I did a lot of off-Broadway shows. I did a lot of commercial work.
And this is while you were a prosecutor, or once you stopped being a prosecutor?
Once I stopped.
You were a prosecutor for how long?
So I was in it for 13 and a half years, adding up both the state and federal. So when I had decided that I was leaving, and I had 2 small children, that was also in the calculation, because I really didn't have enough time. Felt like I was conflict. I really had, my time was mostly at work. And I just had this moment where I said, there's other things I want to do. And I have other passions I want to live. And I'm not just one thing. And I did love being a prosecutor. I didn't hate my job. I didn't leave because I hated it. But I felt as though I had done everything I wanted to do in that field. And I felt I had done it to the best of my ability, so I could leave and do something else.
And start a new chapter.
I started a new chapter. And it was okay,
And how old were you when you started that new chapter?
Oh, I was in my 30s.
Okay.
And in the latter part of my 30s. And what was interesting is that, and I talk about this incident in my book, but I like to mention it because I think sometimes I felt I was old getting into this field. So I started saying that I was like 32, 33, because that sounded much better than 38 and 39. So I
like saying I like doing something different each decade. A decade is a long time.
It is.
Especially, I feel now that we are women of wisdom, now that we have achieved a certain age and a certain number of decades under our belt. And we're not done. And there's other decades ahead of us.
There's other things that I don't even know quite yet, haven't tapped into what that interest is, hasn't sparked for me quite yet. I think when you approach things that way, and I love what you just said, it was another chapter, and I threw myself into 1,000% because that's how I live my life. Anywho, and I absolutely love it. I was doing I had a one-woman show I did around the state. I did sing in the Cotton Club. I had a bass player and a pianist I used to work with. And I was doing all this myriad of things. And a woman heard me who was an opera singer. And she said, wow, I think I could show you opera. And I think your voice would lay very beautifully into that. And who knew? I'd heard an opera singer when I was in elementary school. I was always fascinated. The thought that I could sing opera, this is amazing. I ended up working with her for about 3 years, and I started doing some opera concerts. I did a small role in an opera, and then I had a chance to sing as part of a wonderful program that was at Carnegie Hall. And it was an old time opera. It was one that the family from Italy was there to hear. And it was absolutely amazing. It was like, wow, there's this other chapter. And I had all of these thoughts. My agent was really trying to work me into a Broadway show. I was doing still jazz. I was trying to do opera, and I was doing a lot. And I wasn't really taking care of my vocal cords as I should have. I felt like I was behind the 8 ball. So I didn't want to say no to anything. And the all approach really hurt myself very, very much. And I got majorly derailed. I lost really my singing voice. I had a huge infection from overtaking of, which as a doctor, it's like the antibiotics. A lot of singers take antibiotics to get rid of hoarseness. And it was a really bad habit that I got into from other singers. and there were doctors that would script it out for you right away. And my body had a very adverse reaction to it. And when I came out of
Did you
it,
have, was this a GI problem? This was,
I had a throat infection from here all the way
wow.
down.
So the problem when you take antibiotics unnecessarily
Right.
is that contributes to what we call antibiotic resistance.
That's it.
And antibiotic resistance is a global problem now. And what that means is that if you take antibiotics unnecessarily or eat them in your foods, or, now antibiotics have been found in the drinking water in some places, because people are using antibiotics so much, then when you really need them, they're not going to be as
They're not gonna
effective.
work for you.
So
And my body really reacted. It took my body a while to recover from that.
wow. Well, I'm glad you did recover.
I had lost my speaking voice,
Mm.
the volume of my speaking voice, because it wasn't I just lost connection to all of it. So I had to go to speech therapy for like about 4 months of speech
Wow.
therapy. Yeah. And then I was like, okay, well, wow, speech is back, singing back. Well, I had also lost the connection of the natural connection to where your tones are. So I was very overweight at the time. I couldn't sing. I really was just trying to get my speaking voice back. That was my main goal at the time. And I decided that I had had enough with my weight. And I wanted to lose, but I did not want to go on a diet. That was the only rule I made. I said, I'm not going on a diet. I don't know what I'm going to do, but I'm not going to go on a diet. That's it. I'm going to figure this out for the first time in my life. And it was a real turning moment for me. And it was really what was the impetus for me to get into the health field, because of my success on figuring it out and not dieting, and recognizing just all of the false information that is put out every year, especially in certain times, like around the first part of the year.
I was gonna say, it like any day that ends in Y.
Yes, and then, oh my goodness, if you stay up late for the infomercials, because they will, if you're really depressed or you need something or you're looking for a change, they will tap into your pain center 100% on all the infomercials. And I have been partaking for many, many years in all of that. And for me to give up all of it and to realize, wow, you can reset your body's weight without pain, without stress, without deprivation, without all the things that I had been led to believe and had lived for so long, that you could do it and have fun, that it could be joy, that you could find fitness fun. This was like this is revelation for me. And it precipitated me going hog wild into the wellness side, becoming a trainer and a group fitness trainer for a while.
I'm hearing a trend here. It sounds like everything you go into, there's like this overachiever thing.
Yes, I can. I
Kind
don't
of
know how to
happens.
do it. I don't know how to do anything halfway. My husband's like, what are you doing now? I said, listen, back in school, I really want to get this down. I want to understand the science behind, I don't want to just be one of the group trainers jumping up and down. I really want to understand, body mechanics. And so I just found myself constantly back getting as many certifications, mostly out of just pure joy and loving it. And then wanting to have really the substance behind all of the things that I would do, whether I was teaching a class in a gym, or I did a lot of things for towns. Then I did a lot of things for some local town government.
How did you get connected with Rutgers, which is the State University of New Jersey?
Yeah, so I got into the hospital system first. So I was with St. Barnabas for many years, and then for Beth Israel Hospital. And through my connection there, I had done some work for the Department of Health for another program that was done. And I met a woman who worked for Rutgers, probably now it would be 8 years ago. We met one time. We talked, we really connected, similar to you and I. Connected, and then we didn't talk. And
similar to you and I, and that was my fault.
I got a call from her and she said, I'm leaving my position. She was a research fellow at the Aging Brain Health Alliance in Rutgers. She said, but I know it doesn't sound like it's an exact mix, but I think you would be really great for a component of what I was doing. I'm getting ready to do this Department of Health grant, and I think you would be perfect. So you could come in your business and you would help set up this grant. You would help set up the exercise component that supported the scientific research, hire staff, and then conduct wellness workshops weekly. And so for me, it was it was just a wonderful, it was okay. So I came in with full knowledge. I was a health coach by then, trainer. I said, okay, I know exactly how I'm going to set it up. But what I didn't realize was all of this immense science on the brain health. And it was just eye-opening for me, because I said, wow, okay, so here we are, and it's common among trainers. We're so focused on nutrition and we're so focused on the body. And here are all of these other amazing components of brain health that maybe we don't focus on with our clients. Yet I sit in meetings and I'm in neurology symposiums, and I'm hearing the scientists say, these are the most important things to your health. Like, they're ranking some of these things ahead of things that we so focus on. And I thought, I got to bring the worlds together. You can't just deal with these couple of items without taking into account all of them, or you're never going to get the full success that a person can have.
Right. So I hear this from every neurologist I ever talk to, that they're jealous of the attention that heart health gets.
Exactly.
And they feel like brain health is more important, because you can't have cardiac function if you don't have brain function.
Exactly.
But they don't have their act together as a community as much as the heart health community does. But of course, everything that you do that improves your cardiovascular health or your heart health is good for your brain.
Exactly.
And we think of the brain in a very old-fashioned way, that once you're grown, there's nothing you can do to improve your brain health, which you're here to say that is absolutely an outdated way of thinking. And it's also patently untrue.
It's patently untrue, and it's dangerous. So I was listening to a doctor that was speaking last night, actually, and she was talking about Alzheimer's and dementia, and how it has had an immense increase within our country from, I think, 2017. And the increase, and also it's affecting, it always has affected women at a greater percentage, but then it's now affecting women at a younger age. And so
and we used to think that was because of demographics, because women live longer, but we now know that when we adjust for age and adjust for longevity, it's increasing in women and affecting women younger.
At a rate. And the end result is, in a few years, this is going to be one of the biggest things we talk about it. But so when we talk about health, and people say, oh, people instantly think nutrition or fitness, and I get that, and I do want you to think about that 100%. I'm not making that less. But what I'm saying is that if you're not also thinking about how nutrition is affecting the whole body, right, the brain, the foods that are really going to be the best for brain health, that's going to keep you the most alert, most attentive, most reactive in situations. If you're not also thinking about the power of sleep and how sleep helps the brain, but then, as you
I noticed that's the first bullet point on the poster you have behind you.
Oh my gosh.
Of course, most people are listening to this as a traditional podcast, so they're not watching the video, so they can't see the Brain Fit poster behind you. But why don't you just go through each bullet point that you have on your poster, so that people who are listening can really get the benefit of the highlights here.
So here I am sitting in this sleep symposium, a neurology symposium, and they're up there talking about, one of the neurologists was up there talking about the significance of brain health and and as it relates to sleep, and how if this one component is off, so goes a lot of your system, right, and your ability to function. And how if you're not getting, not just that you sleep, but you have to get all of the cycles of sleep. It's the quality of sleep that you're getting. And are you going through all the cycles several times during the night? If you're not, you are never allowing your brain and your body to cleanse itself of the impurities and the waste product that builds up in cells. And so it builds up over time, and people have heard of things such as amyloid plaque and things that could be contributed to Alzheimer's and dementia later on in life. So first and foremost, I say sleep, because no one talks about it, because no one.
Well, we do talk about it on this podcast,
Yes.
and we have had Dr. Michael Bruce, who is a top sleep expert. And one of the things he talked about was the connection between sleep and weight management.
Oh,
and he actually wrote a fabulous book called Lose Weight While You Sleep. And I was all for that. Unfortunately, the bad news is, one of the things he also reminded us is it's not enough to get good quality sleep, and it's not enough to get sufficient sleep. It also has to be regularly scheduled sleep.
Yes.
So
It
you have
cannot be once in a
bedtime
while.
and a wake up time. And then the other really bad news he told us, that we all know because our mothers have all told us this, is that you have to turn off your cell phone.
Oh, all of the
before you go to sleep.
blue lights, all of the TV and any kind of electronic device. I always think it's like it's seeping into your brain cells.
Well,
and
and
if
it's
you're not
sucking
even
them out.
consciously aware of it, it affects and disrupts your quality of sleep.
So get back to your bullet points.
Yes, but anyway, yes, you talk about it, but what I mainly mean is health professionals, like so trainers and such like that, that are working with their clients are not really as concerned on issues of sleep, though that might be why they are not able to lose a certain amount of weight. It might really deal with their quality of sleep that they're getting. So I also, of course, we talk about eating. One of the things that I have here is also de-stressing. So the stress part of it, and I know you guys talk about this probably several times, but stress equals disease, and disease can creep up on you on the long run. And so how you handle stress, the way the stress is handled in your body, is it laying so much to build up inflammation? So dealing with stress, I am very big, and I talk about this in my book on breathing and the ability to use breath as one of the stress management tools, one of the many, but sleep and breathing and really good diaphragmatic breathing is going to be one of those key components. And then of course we have the cardiovascular fitness, and I have here about how we do some muscle conditioning and the like. I would add to this component when we're talking about brain fit on how we challenge the brain. The brain needs to be challenged. The body needs to be challenged. I talk about your limiting beliefs need to be challenged, but you need to really take it upon yourself to make sure that you are doing things that are constantly engaging the muscles of your body, but also this big muscle between your ears. Don't get sedentary, don't get basic in your knowledge of what you do. You should constantly be doing something that challenges the brain to do it a little differently. If you always drive one way to one place, maybe try a different way without the little woman or the little man telling you what turns to make, and challenge yourself to be able to do certain things. Taking your hand in the hand that is your non-dominant hand and doing a lot of different things with it during the day. All of these things, and we all know about taking a language or learning a new skill or dance or something along those
and it can be very simple things. I actually have there was a water aerobics class that I used to go to, where the instructor was very into brain fitness as well as bodily fitness, and she had us do these things called brain jacks, which were half jacks, jumping jacks in the water, but doing them the opposite way, so that your arms come in when your legs are open and vice versa. And I cannot tell you how hard that was when I first tried doing it, because your body, jumping jacks is something we've done since we were kids, and you're so conditioned to doing your arms and legs in the same direction. So that was just something.
And it's great because what it's causing you to do is rewire.
Mm-hmm.
And it has instant rewiring, and new connections, the neural connections have to be made for you to change what is known behavior to something new, and to do it on the fly. And one of the beautiful things about you kind of indicated it earlier, but it got me super excited when I'm reading a study and it's saying, okay, you can grow white matter and gray matter in your brain, and exercise and giving you physical exercise can help you to do that. So nothing is static in your ability to make new connections between neurons is not static, and your ability to take in information and to really be able to utilize it in ways that you didn't even think you had the ability to do, which is going to cause to call upon old information to mix with new information. It's not static. It just requires you to actually exercise that part of the brain, and it calls for you to just think of it along those lines. If you do not use it, you will lose it. If you do not challenge your brain, the brain cells, actually, you will lose brain cells over time and their ability to connect with one another, and your ability to take good information that you've just taken in and to really be able to absorb that into another part of your brain. You will lose that ability just by virtue of you stopping living, because that's what you're kind of doing when you stop challenging yourself.
Oh, you stop growing. And we also know that that's how sleep deprivation or sleep debt can actually cause physical damage to the ends of your neurons.
Yes.
The dendrites and the also axonal damage, and they can't transmit neurochemicals as well. So that has been shown over and over again. So yet another reminder, these are all things we have to do. Easier said than done.
Yeah.
Obviously. And sometimes it really just takes that one thought or that one person to say one thing to you that kind of changes how you think of things. I know for me, the pandemic was the worst of times and the best of times in terms of my own fitness, because in the beginning, my pools were closed. I have to swim. I finally got it through my thick skull that is what I need and that's what my body needs. But the pools were closed during the pandemic. So instead of swimming, I was surfing, and that was couch surfing.
No bueno.
As soon as the pools opened again, I had a new appreciation for swimming, because of course, when you lose something, the first thing you want is that thing. And what I was thinking about is, at that point, we didn't have vaccines yet. And I was thinking about, okay, I need to be physically prepared for if I get COVID. And one of the great things about swimming is it really increases your lung capacity if you do it right. So if we think about exercising the full extent of our lungs, and this is what you're talking about when you're talking about breathing exercises and deep breathing, and nobody knows better about breathing than an opera singer. Yes. But when you're using the full extent of your lungs, you're getting into all the air sacs or alveoli at the base of your lungs. And I would actually, while I was swimming laps and counting my breaths and doing like breath holding exercises while I was swimming, I would literally think about those little alveoli, at the bottom of my lungs, just kind of opening up. And
I think it's brilliant, because one of the things that, I don't know, sometimes I question the statistics, but you often read about 80% or 85% of the population breathe shallowly. However it is, whatever, if it's really that high or somewhere in there, most people are not exercising their ability to really get the deepest benefit out of breath. And so if it's the full extent of your lungs, if it's engaging your diaphragm to its fullest extent, if it's feeling the expansion, which can come on the sides and even towards the back of your body, when you really expand the breath through the lowest part of your body, it's allowing your body to really oxygenate more efficiently all the cells. Mm-hmm. And once again, similar to what we were saying about the brain, if you're not using it, if you're not challenging it, then you're losing it over time. It's the same for if you're not oxygenating cells in your body, you are causing cells, if they don't get enough oxygen for too long, they die off. And that can create all sorts of problems, leading to, for some people, disease, or for some people just not being able to utilize a limb or a movement as well as they could because of a lack of oxygenation. So I think when we think about it from the standpoint of, it is one of the most gorgeous things that we have the ability to do for ourselves. And it's this immense power source. So a lot of my training is reconnecting people to feeling their breath and tying it to every move of their body. so that when you lift your leg or when you take your arm out to the side and you do it with breath, you can actually feel the power and you start to reignite that connection between the brain and the body. The more that you do it, it's almost like it is like a computer, you know, a little fine-tuned computer that you're really kind of reconnecting all of this so that everything that you do, the more I can get you to connect with breath, the more efficient I can make that movement for you in fitness or just in everyday living, walking, going upstairs. You're so much more connected with what you're doing.
And it's very meditative also, which is calming and stress relieving. Anyway, of course, one of the great ways to improve your brain health is to read.
Yes.
And the previous book that I just finished before I read your book, which we're going to talk about in 1 minute, is a book by Bonnie Tsui called Why We Swim. Yeah. And in all my years of being a swimmer, it never occurred to me to ask why we swim. And one of the things that she talked about, of course, she talked about swimming for fitness and survival and food and, you know, all these things and competition. But she also talked about swimming for fun. And I had lost that connection. I wasn't doing it for fun and it wasn't fun and I wasn't enjoying it. And then I was like thinking about that and saying, okay, I'm giving myself permission to allow this to just be fun and not be torture.
Yeah, you really don't want to do anything that's torture if you can avoid it.
Yeah, I actually just spoke to my previous podcast guest, who I just spoke to, Suzanne Sinatra, actually invented her company after having a torturous experience, literally torturous experience with a Brazilian wax that went.
Oh my God.
I've often said that, you know, we could torture prisoners of war. If we gave prisoners of war Brazilian waxes, that would be a violation of the, you know, Hague guidelines against torture. But anyway, your book is very positive and uplifting. And I want to show the people who are, oops, I have my background blurred. Great cover photo, by the way.
Thank you.
And you called the book, Yes, Commit, Do, Live. Why didn't you call the book Brain Fit? Or is that the title of the next book?
Oh, well, you know, what I really wanted to do, and next book. There are many more books.
About the next.
There are many more books. About the next book. I really enjoyed this book writing process. I'm going to tell you. I came into it, and this particular title came to me because one of the things that I'm always doing with my clients is really getting them to say the yes to the right thing. So we really are getting into the yes to those things that uplift you, pick you up, and really take you to the next level, fitness-wise, nutrition-wise, what have you. So yes, that was just something that was a mainstay with me. Commit, do, live. And this is all about, I wanted to give a roadmap that might be a little bit different than how most people think about fitness. You know, a lot of people, I want to do, what is your nutrition thing? Or what is the fitness thing you're going to, or is it just some brain fit or sleep? I wanted to say that a lot of the journey, if you want a lasting journey, has to begin from the inside out. Because from working with clients over the years and groups of people, one of the things that I noticed that can derail anyone at any time is unresolved issues regarding how you view your health and wellness.
Okay, I resemble that remark.
Yeah. Unresolved painful things that get in your way and will come at a moment's notice to say no more, or I've done it long enough, or the intellectual, you know, I can figure it out myself from now on. Those things that, you know, that come up, and really getting to the source of them, where they come from, why they're there, how do we handle them? Are there ways that we can now deal with them in a different way, and then really move into what I call just that positive mindset? And it's not just a mantra, oh, just be positive, just say yes.
Keep it positive.
Yes. Yeah, you know, I am not
a singer, but I am the mother of a singer or two singers.
That's actually pretty good though.
Thank you.
But I would say just not a gimmicky way, but really authentically positive from the inside out, finding the things that move you in the right way. And that can also really ignite that understanding of yourself, the fundamental understanding of what moves you to forward in positive light, what has derailed you in the past, but doesn't have to, negative thoughts and things of that nature.
Well, you talk about negative words also, and not only the words that other people speak on us or to us, but more importantly, kind of the words we speak on ourselves or to ourselves.
For some people, that is, for many people, I'm going to say, because we can be much more cruel to ourselves than anyone would ever be. And we can do it like at a moment's notice. We just go through, call ourselves names, say certain things to ourselves, especially when we've made a mistake or we've done something that didn't really add up to what we think of, the standards that we've set for ourselves. Many people have a whole litany of things they say to themselves. And
I actually underlined that on page 3 of your book. Underline and put a star in that negative, painful words, whether spoken or heard, lead to activations within regions of the pain matrix in the brain.
it's amazing. Who would know that a word could really change what's happening actually physically in your brain? And that's, I put in a reason I wanted to have like moments of science and medicine throughout the book is that I wanted people to know it's not just saying, oh, you should talk positive because it's a nice thing to do. When you really want to make fundamental changes with yourself, if you're living in the negative zone, just sprinkling yourself full of negativity at a moment's notice, your ability to transcend that is really going to be rather limited. And know that this is not just something someone says, this is the sciences behind it. And so that's the impetus to, okay, well, what do I do? Or how can I do it a little differently? Or what do I do if I have something I always say to myself? And
how do I break that pattern?
Right.
How do I stop that? And that's the same thing, not just with the things we say to ourselves, but the things we do to ourselves.
Oh, yeah.
So how we react to stressful situations or stressful words or stressful conversations. I am somebody, and I'm not alone, who I turn to food as a drug.
Right.
I could never understand when I was a young doctor. I could never really understand how people were alcoholics or drug addicts until one day I had to say, oh my goodness,
yes.
They're doing the same. I'm doing the same thing they are, except my drug
was diet.
is food. Or my drug is, Diet Coke.
Yes.
That's what I turned to because it was a maladaptive habit, ironically, which started when I was in medical school. When we weren't learning about nutrition, we were focusing on survival. And caffeine and sugar were my drugs. Actually, one of my colleagues used to say the 4 basic food groups of medical students' diet was caffeine, sugar, cholesterol, and carbs.
That's pretty much
like the worst things that you can have.
I will say, sadly, some of that is still existing, as I would, a lot of my work in some of the hospitals, I would say in the doctor and nurses hospital, the cafeteria, you started off and there'd just be a series of desserts with the coffee machine on the other side. And then if you walk down further, you can get to some healthy things. So maybe there was a lot of work to try to shift it around. I think that the good news, so the bad news is, yes, this has this negative impact on your brain. The very, very and immensely good news is that you can shift it.
We love good news.
Yes.
And you can shift it at any point where you are.
Exactly.
So even if you're 60 years old.
Doesn't matter.
If you
your whole life through, and this is the negative thought you've always had, or you always say this, or you always do that. I think when you can start to dissect, and having done it for myself, I can think of a million other things where I wasn't really fulfilling all the way up to what I thought the standard I should be. And I write in the book about one instance of parenting. And, I was working very long hours, and I would always be late to the daycare picking my son up. And I would feel so bad, from seeing his little long, sad face to the people being extremely frustrated with me as a parent, and just feeling like I couldn't do all things right. And I write about this because just from so many of my clients, that might not be their situation, but there's something that they feel they're not living up to. And all you need is that to unleash just a gateway of negativity to come. So anytime you've ever done anything wrong, and one moment you're feeling low, that's when those thoughts will start to flow, and it can take you from kind of a little low to really low. And what I realized just personally, that a lot of the fuel to the thoughts or to the actions or to the overeating on some occasion, there's an emotionality that's attached to it. And that's the fuel to it. The depression, the sadness, the disgust, whatever it is, that's the emotion, because that's the one that hurts. So it's the word, but then it's the emotion that attach. And when you can see what the emotion is and use the intellect to detach, just to look at the situation, you allow yourself just that moment to be able to make a better choice. So I liken it to, a few different steps I go through, but part of it is at that moment, you can start to look at, wow, well, I was saying, oh, you're always a bad mom. You never get there on time. And I could look at that and I could say, well, wait a minute. No, I'm not always a bad mom. I can think of these 3 times when someone said this, or my son said that, or my dad said this. I can think of counter to that. So that statement is false. And once I can start to dissect always, never, you should have, then I can take away some of the power of it. So when that same thing comes back up, the more I do this, the more I can really rely on, wait a minute, there was some positive things to that. That's not true. It's not a never. And it just takes away, slowly, you take away the sting of whatever that was really getting its fuel to come back and over again. But the one thing that I do put in there, which is a little different, because some people know about, okay, I can take away the sting. But I think for things that come back over and over, there is a hint of truth to it. There's something that makes it, because that's why it's a pearl. That's why your body says, yeah, this is right. There's some truth in there. And it's the truth that you have to deal with. And so it's really kind of owning up to, is there a piece of that is true? Well, okay, yeah, maybe I'm late a lot. Okay, so there's a truth to that. And if I deal with that, then next time something happens and maybe it's an off, now I can say that doesn't happen all the time, because I know it doesn't. I did steps to deal with, chronic behavior in some way. And you start to just slowly through, this kind of internal review, you reclaim your power. So you're not just driven by emotion, in a wave of emotion. Emotion says sad, okay, I eat. Emotion says angry, okay, I eat. Everyone's different. Know what drives them. Now okay, that's an emotion, but behind the emotion is an actual thing that happened. So let me look at this thing. What's this thing that is really pushing me? Maybe I'm super stressed. Maybe it was something someone said. Maybe it was something at work.
Maybe it was taking on too damn much.
Yeah.
So I used to feel very guilty about being late all the time. And my ex-husband once accused me of, you always get everything done at the last minute. Yeah. And in my anger and my response came a moment of clarity. And what I snapped back at him is, the operative phrase in that sentence is, got things done. Yeah, I got it done at the last minute, but hello, it got done. I got it done. And what were you doing while you were sitting around criticizing me for getting it done at the last minute? Oh yeah, I got it done. So I started giving myself more credit for the things I accomplished and the things that got done. Anyway, I could talk to you about this all day long. I want everybody to, instead of talking about it, I want everybody to read your book. Yes, Commit, Do, Live. And then if you haven't read Shonda Rhimes' book, the year of yes, I think her book is a wonderful sequel to your book, even though she wrote her book first, where she talks about her journey to saying yes.
That's right.
And one of the things that was part of her journey unintentionally is she started saying yes. Now you would say, okay, Shonda Rhimes has accomplished, way more before 8 o'clock in the morning than I accomplish in a week. But she felt that she was not saying yes to all of the opportunities which she could have in her life. And what she found was when she just made a rule that I'm going to say yes to all these things, she started saying yes to herself, and yes to taking better care of herself, and yes to being good to herself, and yes to, accepting more invitations and dressing better, and, all of these things, while running a major production company and 5 hit shows and having 3 children.
Yeah.
So,
but, and I think if she were here, she would say, because people say, wow, overnight success, look what you did. But it was all that work. And I love the idea of once you really have that positive thought process, that commitment to really the internal you, your dreams, your desires, you're wanting to take the next step to take care of yourself. Your self-care, your due is going to be so much more evident and apparent. And it's not going to be a whim. It's not going to be a feast or famine. I'm going to do this or do that. You're really going to be committed because you really value you. Mm-hmm. And that's why
I think if she were here, she would say, yes.
Yeah. Yes.
But I love what Morgan Freeman said about, this overnight success thing. Yeah. Morgan Freeman did not become a successful actor until he was 40. And he has often said, in this business, you work your ass off for years and years or decades and decades until you become an overnight success. Yes. And that's really true and applicable to anything. Anyway, I could talk to you about this all day. Where can people get the book?
So the easiest way, I would say go on Amazon. Of course, you can look up under Lisa Charles or Yes, Commit, Do, Live. But I also will say visit my website, which is yescoachlisa.com. And on my landing authors page, I have some wonderful discounts from some other organizations that will be if you come in and get the book and purchase it through my website.
Well, I love what you also have on your website is that people can book a complimentary consultation with you. Usually it's very difficult to figure out how do you engage a celebrity coach. But you make it very, very easy for people. Now, before I let you go, you have to tell me what was your most unique, interesting, or memorable experience you ever had in a ladies' room, aside from this interview, of course.
Well, as soon as I was thinking about that question, I only have one that comes to mind because it was so I'm in the ladies' room using the facilities, obviously. And someone that was next to me, they didn't have enough toilet paper, whatever. So that's not unusual. So I was passing it. But for whatever reason, this now became a conversation. So now she just wanted to have like this. She just started asking me questions. And I just, in my mind, I was thinking, well, we're having this loud conversation. Other people coming in and out. I really didn't want to have a conversation, but I didn't know how to just like stop. And she was not being outrageous or anything, but she was asking me such things as where you're from. Long have you
she doesn't want to take toilet paper from any stranger.
How long have you been in this area? I was traveling through, then it came time to I was finished. I was still in there and talking. And then I was thinking, well, I'm leaving now. So it's like, and it was just such a thing because at this point, other people now had come in and they were somehow intrigued by this ongoing conversation with me now washing my hands, trying to end the conversation.
I now realize that one of the reasons I am so chronically late to so many things is because I usually wind up having so many conversations with people in the ladies' room.
There you go.
Thank you so much for joining us. I hope everybody gets the book, Yes, Commit, Do, Live. And join us for our next exciting episode of In the Ladies' Room with Dr. Donica. Take care.
That's all we have time for today. Let's keep the conversation going on Twitter or Facebook. @DrDonica. And please join us next week for another episode of In the Ladies' Room with Dr. Donica. Real conversations with real women about really intimate topics.